TikTok, it's time to talk about WearOS. Hey guys, Flippin' Bobby here. So even though I don't own a smartwatch, I've always kind of been interested in them, mainly because I'm fascinated with how many features they can have. I know they're more geared towards athletes since a lot of these companies that make them, like Apple and many of the companies that support WearOS, which is Google's alternative, market them as more fitness products. I'm honestly kind of interested in looking at them as a watch that can show smartphone notifications, like when somebody calls you, when somebody sends you a message, or maybe if you're going to a hotel somewhere, you could use your watch to check into your room. Things like that. I don't really see it as like one of the most necessary devices, because with something like a smartphone, you could definitely argue, hey, it's my device for making calls. That's how I communicate with people on Facebook and Twitter. That's my camera. Whereas something like a smartwatch kind of feels redundant to me, because if I wanted to make a call, I'm just gonna like pick up my smartphone and call somebody. If I want to text somebody, I think it would be more accurate if I typed out my message rather than say to my phone, text Steven, I'm going to be late for this upcoming movie, or something like that. Or even going back to what I was saying about, checking into a hotel. I know there are some places where it's not possible to check the time on a smartphone, like maybe you're taking an exam in college and the classroom clock is right behind you, so you have to use your watch just to make sure that what time the test is going to be over and things like that. But most of the time I just rely on something like my iPhone 7. But I still think smartwatches are definitely interesting. They're definitely interesting in itself, and just in terms of how many features they can like these companies can put in a device the size of, well, a watch. And every now and then I go use them in a Best Buy, particularly the Apple Watches. But one company that's really trying to update their smartphone interface is the one I mentioned earlier in this video, WearOS, which is Google's smartwatch operating system. It used to be called Android Wear, and then they changed it to WearOS because, I don't know, it sounds like WatchOS, which is the name of the Apple Watch's software. I mean, it's anybody's guess, but I think that's why. But, so basically, because the last time I've looked at Android Wear was really when it was coming out, and it was very reliant on lists. Like, if you wanted to go from one app to the next, instead of having that, how on an Apple Watch, all the apps are laid out on this home screen, on an Android Wear watch, at least the early versions, it was always laid out on a wrist, and it just felt like an afterthought compared to the Android smartphone operating system, just in terms of, oh, hey, we got to put this on a watch, just put it out on a list, because, I know on the Apple Watch it can get kind of overwhelming just having this whole, like, grid of apps, but it just felt like, but Android Wear in comparison always kind of felt like an afterthought to me. It doesn't sound like a bad operating system. I do like how, unlike the Apple Watch, you can use it on either an iPhone or an Android phone, but it just felt like Google was putting, Android features on a watch, maybe just doing a couple touch-ups to work on a smaller display, and that's it, not really doing much. But this new redesign that they showed off at IFA is really pushing their fitness-related features, and this new version of WearOS relies more on swiping around, which I'll get into right now. So from currently right now in WearOS, you swipe either left or right to change watch faces, but now you long press the watch face in order to change watch faces. And from the main watch face, if you swipe right, you can get to your Google Assistant feed of information. Things like weather, time to get to work, your hotel reservations. So basically, if you guys are a little behind the times, it's like Google Now. If you swipe left from the main watch face, you can get to Google Fit's new fitness tracking rings. Now, these two rings, how they work is that one ring is called Move minutes, which track how many minutes you do any kind of physical activity like walking down the street. And the other ring is heart points, which indicate when you get into activities that raise your heart rate up, even if you're doing things like fast walking to get to work. If you swipe up from the main watch interface, you get your notifications. So, you scroll through your friends' latest message, the latest messages your friends sent you, and the latest emails you got. And if you swipe down from the watch face, you get to your quick setting shortcuts, things like accessing airplane mode, Google Pay, and your battery saving mode. And now if you short press the main button on your Android Wear watch, you get to see all your apps. I still kind of prefer scrolling on the digital crown, only because I don't really like having to rely on, a separate button, outside of the screen, but that's just me. And if you long press the main button, you invoke Google Assistant to ask questions via voice recognition. Typical things like asking Google Assistant, how's the weather today, or send a text message to Johnny, and things like that. So I'm honestly kind of conflicted because one of my main gripes with any smartwatch is that the user interface is not as is nowhere near as easy to pick up as something like on a smartphone, whether it be Android or iOS. Because when I'm using like my iPhone, for instance, usually when I turn it on, I, access apps through the home screen. Maybe I'll swipe down to check my notifications. Very rarely, I know on iOS, if you swipe left on the home screen, you get to access your widgets, but I mainly just stick to notifications and just accessing apps from the home screen. And it's kind of a similar process when I use an Android phone. I just use the home screen or the app drawer to access apps. I'll probably swipe up to or swipe down to get to my notifications. I'll hit the multitasking button in order to get to the multitasking screen or to get to split screen use. But basically, what I'm getting at is that smartphone navigation is a lot more simple than on a smartwatch. Because even now, even though I've used the Apple Watch several times, like when I go to a Best Buy and Apple store, every time I use one, I still kind of have that feeling of what the hell do I do? Do I press, what happens when I press down the screen? What happens if I swipe up and down? And yes, these are, the gestures I just told you about actually sound like something I could definitely get used to. But I think it's definitely one of the turnoffs of smartwatches is because there's such a smaller screen, it's often hard to remember, what each swipe does. So it's going to take a bit of time, I think, for especially smartwatch newcomers like myself to get used to this kind of new interface. Because actually saying it out loud, it actually makes this interface kind of easy to remember. And even then, and I guess you could say kind of like how on my iPhone, I don't use every swipe-related feature. Like if I was to use a WearOS watch, I probably wouldn't use the Google Fit features. The most I'd probably do is swipe to get my notifications and then maybe swipe to get my controls, like turning on airplane mode if I go on a flight, or definitely using Google Pay because I do like making transactions on like my smartphone. So I think it's something I could get used to. Even just filming this video right now, it sounds a lot easier than I thought it was going to be when I was researching it. But I think it's definitely going to take some time to get used to these kind of features. But given the success of especially, and I'm not saying, I know in terms of statistics, but most of the time when I see people with smartwatches, it's usually things like a Fitbit or the Apple Watch. Given the popularity of smartwatches, the relative popularity of smartwatches, I think there's definitely a market out there and there's definitely people who like to use them. So please let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think this WearOS update is a welcome update? Do you think it's going to help people out? Or even if it doesn't, do you think people can get used to them? Like if you have a smartwatch yourself, did it take some time for you to get used to how to use it? And did you adapt well? So please let me know all your thoughts down below. If you have any ideas for IFA related videos, please let me know down below in the comments. And you can also email me. I'll have my email address in the description of this video. So thank you guys for watching. I think that about does it for my IFA 2018 coverage, unless you guys have any ideas for future videos on IFA related announcements. So until then, I'll see you guys later. Hey guys, be sure to like this Blood Moon Bobby video if you enjoyed it. Please share this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. Be sure to ring the notification bell to be notified about my latest upload. Follow me on my social media pages at Blood Moon Bobby to find out about what I'll be covering next and for more of my opinions. Thanks for watching.